Now presenting
The RKUltra podcast,
Expanding Your Minds.
whether you want it or not.
Why do you eat
Not brains.
brains only?
Yes.
Hey RJ, how many grams of brains do you eat per day?
At least 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
I think, that a healthy mind, expanding, altering amount. Welcome to the RKUltra podcast, talking about zombies today.
Yes, we'll be talking about brain-eating zombies, flesh-eating zombies, really all kinds of zombies. So RJ, how did the idea of the zombie enter the cultural zeitgeist?
Well, basically, zombie comes from the Congo word for soul, nzambi. And it was adapted by the Haitians through slavery into the word zombie, where they use it in their voodoo practice.
I see. So it's like a fringe part of the voodoo practices.
Yeah. It's a fringe part of voodoo, which is their religion there. Actually, 80 to 90% of Haitians believe in this. People who die unnaturally before their time, murdered or anything like that, they tend to linger at their grave. Their soul stays near their body.
Like trapped in limbo down there.
Yeah, basically they're waiting for the god's approval. This makes the soul more vulnerable, and a powerful sorcerer, a boko, as they call it, can come up and actually capture it in like a bottle and use that to control the undead body.
So basically some sort of malicious shaman comes around to a weak soul and captures it and resurrects the body, uses it for slavery or some other horrible intent.
Yeah, that's how the story goes. So how do you speculate they were doing this?
No one really knows. I looked into it, and there's some research on it. There was a scientist who suspected that they might be using a neurotoxin inside of a pufferfish that would, basically simulate death, shut off parts of the brain.
Interesting. So there's like a hidden chemistry going on here that maybe we're not even aware of yet medically.
Well, exactly.
Officially.
Yeah, well, I mean, they don't know what kind of cocktail they've been using. That was one speculation, but there's really no evidence or proof. It's thought that this was passed down from generation to generation, this type of knowledge. So
Interesting. So that's the origin. But clearly our modern conception of zombies comes from movies.
Oh, definitely. The first zombie movie was called White Zombie, and it was made in 1932. And if you're wondering, yes, that is where Rob Zombie got his band name.
Yep. It starred Bela Lugosi, who was also Dracula. But the most iconic, and the one that really got zombies off the ground and into the mainstream media, was Night of the Living Dead by George Romero in 1968.
Night of the Living Dead is probably the most famous low-budget horror movie. Even though color was readily available by 1968, they chose to shoot it in black and white because it was just much cheaper.
Yeah, I feel like that adds to the effect, really.
Oh, yeah, me too. There's a colorized version that they put out later, but, I think the film looks much better in black and white.
Yep, it's the classic zombie seeks you out, bunker up in a townhouse and defend the madness.
It's definitely where we get our modern conception of a zombie. They're seen walking slow and lethargically. They don't look like they can think very much. You don't even really know they're dangerous until you get close to one and they try to bite you.
So how did the zombie disease originate in this one?
Well, it's from a satellite that exploded in Earth's orbit. Radiation comes down to the planet and reanimates the recently deceased.
Yeah, and it's transmitted through bites?
Yeah, they just get up and just start biting people.
Classic.
I love the way that they seem to get it under control at the end of this movie,
Yeah.
And a lot of the other movies, the world's just kind of screwed, but,
Yeah.
like...
A more hopeful ending.
Yeah, it kind of goes how I always thought it would go. A bunch of rednecks would just get shotguns and comb the countryside.
Naturally. Moving forward, we have the 1978 masterpiece, the sequel to Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, also directed by Romero. This was actually the first major box office success for zombies. With a budget of $640,000, it grossed worldwide $66 million. It also features Tom Savini effects and shows the larger scale effect of a zombie apocalypse on society.
Oh, yeah, the effects in this movie were great. Tom Savini's a mastermind. For those of you who don't know, he also did the effects in Friday the 13th and many other slasher movies.
I think one of my favorite aspects about this movie is how it takes place in a mall.
Yeah, it's actually shot in the Monroeville Mall in Pennsylvania near where I grew up.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've actually been to it before. They used to have a zombie walk around it every year.
Really?
Yeah, this movie made zombie culture popular with a wide number of people, and it's hailed by critics as probably the best zombie movie ever made.
And I love the iconic quote, "When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth."
Yeah, that's a great tagline. They got to use it again in 2004 when they remade the movie. I believe it was written by James Gunn and directed by Zack Snyder.
Yeah, actually one of the few remakes worth watching.
Yeah, no, I remember at the time I hated horror movie remakes, but I saw that one and I just let it pass because it was pretty good.
Yeah, I loved it.
They definitely tried to get edgier and faster with the zombies, but, I let it go.
You let a lot of things go, Kevin.
Yes, indeed. But I'd rather not talk about that. Instead, I would rather talk about some of my favorite zombie B movies. Perhaps my favorite zombie B movie is Return of the Living Dead, 1985 comedy horror.
A cult classic.
Yeah, it's the first time that brains are used as food exclusively for the zombies. It's all they eat. They even strap a zombie to a table and ask it why. And
Yeah, and they talk.
yeah, they talk. That's weird, It responds. It's like, oh, brains, curb the pain of death.
Naturally. One of my favorite parts about the movie is how the zombies can't be killed. They even try to dismember one, and the body parts just wriggle around and chase you.
Yeah, totally unkillable.
Yeah, they even try to incinerate one, and that just creates a larger issue for them. Something else that's interesting about this movie is how they link it to the original Night of the Living Dead. They basically say that the events that happened in that movie were true, and they filmed a movie based off of it, but they had to change around the facts so that, nobody would get in trouble.
Yeah, very good concept. When they try to kill a zombie for the first time, they try to kill it by destroying its brain and hitting it in the head with an axe, but they just smack the zombie in the head with an axe, nothing happens, it just screams and wriggles around.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome scene.
Yeah. Terrifying when I first saw it.
And the acting in that movie is honestly pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, not all of the acting, but there are roles that are just, really pop out.
And on that note, I believe the zombie horde has broken through our last layer of defense. So, we better go handle that.
Yep, okay. I'll load the shotgun.
Yep. Thank you guys for tuning in and letting us expand your minds.
In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at RKUltraCast. You can also go to www.rkultra.com. Be sure to follow us because we'll be following you.